Thank you very much. So welcome all to the launch of our 9th report titled Migrant and Ethnic Economies in Times of Crisis, Displacement, Brexit, COVID, and Cost of Living. My name is Natalia Perez, and I'm part of the Latin Elephant team. With us this evening, we have online Santiago Pelufo Ceneira. Hello, Santi.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. And we also have in person our colleagues. We've got Sarah Goldsway. Hello, Sarah. If you could please give us a wave. Thank you very much. We also have our colleague Sophie Rebecca Wall, who is, I think, behind a computer. So hello, Sophie. And we also have, hello, Sophie. Thank you. We also have Mabel Machado. I understand Mabel is here with us. I hope she has joined in person, or she'll be joining shortly. And we also have two trustees, Trustee Kathy Moway. Hello, Kathy. Kathy's there. And also our chair of the Board of Trustees and founder of Latin Elephant Patria Roman. Hello, hello. So for people who may not be familiarized with Latin Elephant, we are a registered charity with the Charity Commission, and we registered back in 2014. As an organization, we promote alternative and innovative ways of engaging and incorporating migrant and ethnic groups in processes of urban change in London. We focus our work in three priority areas. One is business support, where we aim to strengthen engagement and business readiness for London's Latin American and other migrant-owned businesses. We also focus on community engagement by bringing together diverse communities and increasing awareness and participation in relation to the use of public spaces. Our third priority area of work is on research and policy, where we work with local organizations, academics, and think tanks to present evidence-based cases about the needs of racialized communities affected by regeneration. This report is part of our research and policy work. I'm proud to say that this is our 9th report. In the past, we've had other reports, such as the case for London Latin Quarter and other white reports which you can find on our website. This evening, we will hear from colleagues involved in the development of this paper. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the funder who has made this report possible, Impact on Urban Health. I understand that Nicola is here with us, so thank you so much, Nicola, and to all your colleagues for your support. Thank you very much, Santi. You've got the abstract pinned on the screen, so further information there. For colleagues who are participating online, we would like to make this activity as interactive as possible. So please use the chat function to make comments, to ask questions, and please do let us know if you wish to ask a question by raising your hand, and we will do that for you. Santiago has just put in the chat function the link to the report that we're launching this evening. And we also invite you all to please interact via our social media handles. There they are. Thank you very much. We've got at Latin Elephant, and we're using two hashtags today, Elephant and Castle, and also Migrant Economies. This evening, we will be hearing from, as I said, participants involved in this research, and also from business owners that are part of the Elephant and Castle community. So it's over to you, Patria.
Yeah, I'm just very briefly going to sort of introduce the team, really. The report also starts as part of, I think we were really sort of just coming out of the sort of relocation of the traders into different sort of areas around the Elephant and Castle, when we were simultaneously become aware of the impact that Brexit was having in the trading for customers and so on, and also for goods as well. So what we decided to do at that particular time was to do a little survey to figure out how much impact was actually Brexit having. What we didn't know was that towards the end of that sort of particular type of research that we were doing, and some workshops with traders also to find out in particular ways in which it was actually impacting them, we then were faced with the consequences of COVID, the cost of living prices, the war in Ukraine. And what we found was that the traders were suffering like 5 multiple crises simultaneously. And we thought it's our duty in a way to understand this, to better serve those communities, but also to work with them to see what is it that we actually need to do in this particular context, which is quite sort of bleak in a way, in certain ways, and with very grave consequences at times as well. Gathering this information in the context of relocation hasn't been easy. We have tried to guarantee anonymity as much as we can to avoid repercussions and negative repercussions for the traders. And we really thank those who are participating today. They have or not, or yes, participated in the report. We're not going to disclose that, but the fact that here doesn't necessarily mean that they are in representing the report. And we will also appreciate that you also keep the level of confidentiality that we are sort of discussing here as well, because the repercussions can be negative. And we've been really careful methodologically how we treat the traders. So in the report, you will see we don't name anyone, and rather detached, which is not the way we work in a way, but we wrote in a really detached way, naming them by numbers or so on. But it is not. We have a very close relationship with them, and the reasons why we get the information we get is because of that aspect of trust. And with no more, I think I'll leave you with Sarah. All of us basically participated in the writing and researching of the report. But Sarah took the lead on that, so I'll leave her.
So yes, well, first I do want to introduce 2 of the traders who are here with us. This is Ahmed, this is Esther, and then we have a couple more traders joining us a little bit later for the Q&A session of this. I'll just quickly kind of go over the methodology of our research to kind of give some background. We kind of began initially with a contextual understanding of what was going on that kind of emerged over with kind of particular focus on what this report's about in the past 2.5 years. And it is about 2.5 years exactly since the closure of the shopping center today. And from that, we kind of had both a high level understanding or kind of broad general understanding of what it was that's like what the major forces are that are impacting people's ability to run successful businesses. And then also kind of at the more micro level, had very specific stories that we'd kind of gained over weekly, daily conversations with lots of traders. And despite kind of having this very broad understanding, this very kind of specific understanding, we felt like there was kind of something missing connecting the two. So that's kind of what this research was about. We wanted to be able to look at all of these forces and look specifically at what was causing issues, how they're related between traders across the different relocation spaces, and kind of in this ongoing context of regeneration and relocation and displacement. And so from there, we kind of did more intentional interviews, and we identified 9 traders in particular whose kind of diversity in trade, in experience, in relocation status, in background, we felt could provide kind of a comprehensive picture of what was going on here. And we asked them 32 questions across 9 categories, kind of relating to just kind of general background on who they were, what their the business operations looked like, what their customer base was, kind of their health over the past 2 years when we were doing the research, the kind of income and remittances that they were bringing in from their businesses and how that changed, looking forward, what they kind of were expecting. And I lost count of how many questions are, but there's several, and it's introduced in the report if you read it. And so from that, we kind of had 3 main findings. And the first is that regeneration is an ongoing crisis and it's still impacting businesses. So 2 years after the closure of the shopping center, this is still their relocation, their displacement, and kind of the actual process of regeneration is still a major crisis that they're going through. The second is that this has created kind of an underlying level of instability that has made all of these other crises that have come, so COVID, Brexit, now the cost of living crisis, has made those so much more serious. And then the third is kind of that each of these 3 subsequent crises are feeding back into the impact of regeneration. They're making the effects of regeneration, they're kind of amplifying all of the impacts of regeneration, and disproportionately so. And at the basis of that is just that each of these crises individually is disproportionately impacting traders in this community, and kind of compounded effect, it far outweighs what the impact should be. And so that's kind of, those are the 3 main findings. And from that, we have some policy recommendations, which we'll go into a little bit later, but I also do want to, I do want to give you both opportunities to kind of introduce yourselves and your own stories, and speak a little bit about how regeneration and COVID and cost of living and Brexit have kind of impacted you. Do you want to start, Emma? You can just put on your lap and use as a mic.
Just like it.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Migrant. I'm one of the traders from Elephant and Castle Shopping Center. I was there for like 10 years, from 2010. Literally everything that we fought for throughout the campaign, with the help of Latin Elephant and organization like 35%, and we went to the committee, we read we put the application forward, we digested everything, we told them, look, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is what we think is gonna happen. And literally everything happened, even though we warned the committee. So one of the things basically that happened was basically declustering of all traders, because we fed into each other as trades inside the shopping center. As soon as they relocated us, they suggested that we're going to put some here and some there. We said that's going to be declustering. We're not going to be able to survive. Literally, basically, we feed into each other. But they didn't listen to that. And that's what happened. So when the relocation happened, then we were hit with Brexit. And then with Brexit, we had customers from Europe where basically we can sell things on eBay, for example. That's the least example. So now it's going to be difficult to basically feed into European countries. We used to be able to get supplies from Europe. So we can't do that. Some of the competitive prices doesn't always come from China. Some supplies came from Europe. So we've lost that. And on top of that, we were hit with the pandemic. But the pandemic was the worst thing, because what the pandemic did is basically emphasize the declustering. Because what it did it had a great impact on consumer behavior. So consumer behavior was important for us. So we lived in a community, so that came in person to us. So everything moved online. People basically mentality completely changed when they were locked down for 3 months. So when you put somebody for 3 months in a specific cycle, that's it, that becomes the norm. So when they come out of that, it really has become the norm. So you went into a lockdown where people basically could come into us and pay cash, and then 80% or 70% was cash intake. And then basically people used to ask us, do you take card? When we come out of lockdown, people used to ask us, do you take cash? Because most places have changed as a consumer to everybody basically paying by card. So that's another thing. Obviously, a lot of businesses were basically very small businesses who were not really taking card payment. So they had to, that will be an added expense to their cost rather than running cash service. So
With that, we're specifically talking about there's a charge. every time
yeah,
you sell.
exactly. So what you receive is not really the amount that you sell for. So it's an extra expense to the business. So from a viewpoint, I don't want to talk too much, but from the viewpoint of a trader like myself, I can basically try and get you to empty your mind and just go back to nature and imagine us, just a normal inhabitant, just running around in the wild, trying to basically make ends meet. And then comes the big lion, like the developer, an elephant, an elephant, I'm sorry, Southern Council and the likes of them, basically enforcing us to relocate and disturb us. So it's like an attack on us. And then on top of that, you get basically the vultures after we get injured that trying to buy us. And these vultures will be the likes of space management that are trying to take the opportunity to make money out of us, and business advisors. So we used to get funding coming from the government to Southern Council. And by the time it gets to us, it's really nothing because it goes to business advice centers that in the shape of a business management program, and you all have to apply for it. And when you apply for it, you get nothing. You just get a waste of time. And who gets the money that come as a grant from the government is the business advice companies. And the employee by calling you and make an appointment, and there, yeah, we can help you fill this plan, fill that plan. And we're just basically desperate, hanging for anything that will make us go back to normal. And on top of that, you get the hyenas. And unfortunately, the hyenas in this situation would have been, we would try to stay 100% united, but unfortunately, you cannot do that. So some traders will be traitors, and I call them the hyenas. So they look for the opportunity to basically play both sides, to get their own advantage and to get their own goal and to go from a small business to a bigger business. It's normal to have that when you're trying to fight a campaign. So all of this, we had to live. Obviously, it will have a great impact on your mental health, on your normal relation, day to day. So it had a great impact. So the study of the report basically emphasizes all of this. And I read the report. I read the whole report and the finding of the report, and it's great. And I wish basically people can act on it where it doesn't happen again to somebody else. We are a very optimistic group of people. So we dust ourselves and get up and fight again and rebuild ourselves again. So I'll leave you to my sister, who basically one of the traders, and she lived with us in the shopping center and in the arcade where I was relocated and moved out from, but she's still there, and she can basically tell you more about what happened. Sister,
Here,
you
I'll
can put it
hold
on your lap.
You just speak now.
Thank you, everybody. Yes, I've been in the shopping center for the past 27 years in the shopping center. And I knew that it was really good when I started business there. And you make money, you make friends and so many things. But I'm starting from the basic, from the beginning that I entered into the place because it was good then. The thing started going bad when they started demolishing every buildings around here. There used to be a big hotel here. They come to the shopping center, they buy things. That one was demolished. No more. And then later, when they told us that they want to, the place is going to be closed down, they are going to be relocated to different places. I said, we agreed that, okay. And initially, they bring a leaflet to us, 640,000 to be divided among the 25 people then. But nothing now. They didn't hear anything about that. And then relocating to Elephant Arcade is a very, very bad thing. It's like they finish our business because going there for the past 2 years, take for example, today, I didn't make a penny, 1 penny. And I've been there since morning and the place was not properly advertised. Because when you go, if you are coming from Waterloo station, coming to Elephant, look at the side of that building. You can only see the name of the house, Peronet House. So if you ask somebody coming from Waterloo and coming down here, they will never find the place. And it's one of the reasons that we are not having customers because it's not properly advertised. I had so many people that used to be my customers from the previous Elephant and Castle, and they tried to look for me. They phoned me. We are coming. I said, okay, this is who I am. If you stand by the Northern Line, Bekalu line, look in front of you, you will see Elephant Arcade. They came, they passed through that place 3 times. They couldn't locate the place because there's no sign there to put Elephant Arcade. The Elephant Arcade that was written there is not proper. It's not, you won't even see it because there's a big tree that is covering part of it. So you will not see it. And we've already complained about this thing because we are only going there for the past more than 2 years, making nothing. Some of us, we use our money, loan, like any loan, you use it to pay rent because of the interest. If you have interest in something, you keep going. That's, oh, this is what I like. I cannot sit down. Like myself, I don't want to sit down home. Doing what? I enjoy it when I see people moving about and hello, you know, and then we have not seen any changes since we have been complaining. They haven't done anything for us to indicate that they are trying to help us, which is really, really bad. And it's like dumping us in that place from Elephant and Castle. They run our business. We work hard. I work hard for my business day and night. I don't go to parties. I just love this thing. I will run from here to here. If I see any thing. I remember when it was good, Teletubbies and Spice Girls. Yeah, we used to put it on the table like, money in my bag, full. I used to run to the toilet and say, oh my God, see money. Because I used to be in What Road before. I said, why didn't I come here before? It was good. It was really, really good. And we say, like a day, maybe you make 600, 700, 800, sometimes 1,000, not your profits with the sales. But now, before we move, things were really bad before we moved to arcade, but it's not as bad as what we are going through here. You can sit down. Most of the things that I'm selling now, I in particular, most of the things that I'm selling is because I said, also, I give to the people, go and help me selling your place of work, selling the church, selling. That's how I make a little money. And with that, you don't make profit, little profit, which is not enough for you to pay the rent. We are not making money to pay rent, and they want us to be paying the rent. I've been there. I was there because that's the reason that I did not leave Elephant and Castle, because things were improving. Things were improving. Before, by October in the year, by October, the people will start to buy things for Christmas, and you'll be happy. And that one continue until March of another year. You'll keep on having customers. But now, 2 weeks for the Christmas, nothing. Christmas time, that we think people will buy, because of so many things that is affecting people's life. Brexit is there, the pandemic is there, the no job is there, and again, what experience we are having is this internet. People rather they don't want to go. People rather order something from the internet. They're not coming out. And then apart from that, people they think that, oh, okay, my food is comfort. I have so many customers. When they come to me, oh, I'm coming. Maybe they put deposits on something, and I was expecting them. If I see them, hey, come and collect your things. I say, oh, auntie, I'm coming. By the time they come back, they say, sorry, auntie, they couldn't, the money is finished. What are they going to tell the children when they get home that there's no food? So they put that on, say, food. And if you look at the population of people selling food now, almost everybody is selling food. Who's going to buy? I mean, you think, oh, why didn't you change to the people selling food? Everybody is selling food now. I went to Liverpool Street and I saw a big street that they used to sell different things. They were all people selling food. I said, what? I said, what can they do? That's where they can make money and to feed their children. And, we are going through a hell, but we love what we are doing. And that's why we are still there. I cannot stay home and sitting down, because I've been in this business more than 30
years.
Yeah, more than that. I started with the World Road before I moved down to 1993. I was in World Road, and then that's why I said when I moved down to Elephant and Castle, I said when I saw so many things like all these little things I was selling, like toys, like Spice Girls, like this thing. Honestly, you won't believe it. When they come, the children say, I want a Spice Girl, I want this, I want this. Buying, and give money.
Yeah.
Big money. But now.
Thank you, Esther.
Thanks.
So,
Yeah, so quickly before we go on to the next part, I just want to say thank you for sharing. And then I'm just going to build a little bit off of what you spoke about and talk a little bit about what some of the other traders that we spoke to throughout this process have said that I think kind of corroborate the stories that you've told. So we found that for a lot of people, regeneration started long before the demolition of the shopping center. So what they understand as regeneration includes the demolition of the Haygate estate, and that the loss of customers from the demolition of the Haygate estate was incredibly impactful on their businesses. And that generally speaking, regeneration in Elephant Castle is a process that has pushed working class, including immigrant communities, out of the area, has been devastating to the businesses that are here. And so that started several years before the demolition of the shopping center, and even before the plans for the demolition of the shopping center got approval. And as kind of a result in that, which already had kind of reduced footfall, were a lot of old customers that still would come specifically to go to the shopping center, specifically to shop from the businesses. And with the demolition of the shopping center, all of a sudden there's no place to pull people in, and you have kind of, like you said, Emma, these clusters of businesses that have been separated, and there's nothing that's kind of a clear destination for people to be going to. And even these new shopping sites, these relocation sites, are not being advertised as such. So we have a lot of traders who are highlighting the fact that neither Elephant Arcade nor Castle Square at any point indicates that it's a shopping space. They are names that don't necessarily mean anything. And because there's not really the branding around them or any of the kind of effort put in to establishing these places as new shopping locations, there's nothing to attract customers there. The other thing is that there's been a complete change in kind of the demographics of the area as a result of the demolition of the Haygate estate and the regeneration of kind of that part of Elephant and Castle. And that has meant that the kind of relationships between customers and traders has been severed. So a lot of these are students, they're younger people, they already have a tendency to order online, which was only kind of exacerbated, as you said, by the pandemic. And so they're not frequenting the shops, even though in the case of Castle Square, it's basically in the lobby of their buildings. And then on top of that, you don't necessarily have, so if you were to, in the case of Castle Square, for example, it faces inwards away from the main road. So you actually don't know what the structure is, and there's nothing showing what it is. So a lot of traders, one trader remarked that a customer told them it looked like a bird cage. Other traders have said that people thought that they were offices. We have traders that have told us whether they're in Castle Square and Ash Avenue, or whether they're in Elephant Arcade, that their customers, they'll run into their customers on the street and they'll have no idea that they even relocated, even though they're across the street from where they used to be. And as you both said, kind of signage and wayfinding, that's something that you've been requesting since the first day you moved to the relocation sites. Yes, please.
Well, basically, particularly about that subject, about the clustering and declustering. I mean, if you analyze basically the mix of businesses that they put in Castle Square, if you're aware where Castle Square is, it's just literally behind the shopping center in front of the train station. So it's a land owned by the council. If you look at that land, believe me, it's got enough space that could have been built in a square to house the other 13 traders that went to Elephant Arcade, and to even house more. But they've chosen that design, as Sarah said, facing away from the road. God knows for what reason they did that. And when it came to choosing the mix of traders, if you analyze the mix of traders and how they organize everything, it's totally somebody who have no idea what they're doing, clearly, because they like put two cafeterias next to each other and two restaurants next to each other, and then repair shops on top, and then another repair shop below. It's like, I come from Egypt, and normally we have a working concept that works. So you put people who have the same trade together, one after the other, give the consumer a choice, but at least you also know that in this section, there's at least 3 or 4 different shops. that do exact same activity. So that will drive these shops to basically compete for customers, and it will also give the consumer fair pricing. And that's how it works. So rather than basically putting one here and another one upstairs, so if you really know about basically strategy. So they did that. So they could have housed all of us, but by declustering us and putting some here and some there, they have basically, people were asking, where are the traders from the shopping center? And they don't recognize some of the traders. And because not all customers were each like, not for all trades. So if we all stayed together, we would have fed into each other, but they didn't, they chose not to do that.
Yeah.
And with regards to the change of demographic, we were told, we had a session about that, about the demographic by business advisor. We understood basically the demographic will change. That's why we insisted on clustering, because we wanted the locals that relied on us to keep coming to us. But by declustering us and spreading us about, they made us lose our local customers.
Yeah, I mean, I think to that point, they got rid of a lot of the anchor businesses, which were bringing people as kind of like a big shopping trip to the Iceland, to the pharmacies, to the DIY store, and then stopped, and then would stop by and all of the other traders and get the little things they needed.
Yeah.
And you lost that. But I think just in terms of, we know that there were issues with how clustering happened. Like that's something that in the arcade, for example, you had two bag shops directly across from each other. There was no logic to any of it. We know that the design of the arcade, which has the food shops towards the front, means that it doesn't actually drive any of the business through to the back, because you can enter and leave the cafe without ever exploring the rest of the arcade.
They didn't know.
So I mean, I think regardless of what, I don't know the science of clustering businesses, but regardless of what the correct way to do it is, they took something that worked, which was the shopping center, which was a place that brought together community, that brought together people to spend time with their friends, to get all their groceries, to get all of the kind of errands that they needed to run, to just that kind of as a refuge for a lot of people. And they completely destroyed that. They arbitrarily, it seems, and it feels, I think more than anything, that they put traders in places that don't quite make sense.
Yeah.
And the places that they put them themselves don't make sense. Like they originally weren't going to have a lift in Castle Square. How do you have a 2-story shopping space without making it accessible to the customers that would use it? Doesn't make sense. The lift is consistently broken. I think that brings us to another issue, which you both have experienced as well, is that there's massive amounts of disrepair. So even though the idea is that, yes, the shopping center was experiencing managed decline, that kind of that is a pattern that's continued into these new spaces. We were in the arcade a couple of weeks ago when it was raining and stuff, and there was a massive leak down the center of it, on a part of it's kind of a beam that we've had issues with for the entire time, because it's been from day one, because it's been sprinkling paint dust onto esters onto all of your goods. And that's something that you've brought up repeatedly and you've complained about, and they've not done anything to fix. Yeah. And I think that at the end of the day, the overall feeling is just that there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of disappointment. There's almost a feeling that, like you said, it's intentional because there's so many things that are going wrong. How can all of this not be part of the plan? I think, like, that's not to say that it is, but that is definitely, I think, for a lot of traders, that's the way that they've expressed that they feel that a lot of what they're experiencing is not just because of a lack of care or a lack of action. And I think I just want to see if there's anything else that is there anything you want to say, Patria, before?
Not about relocation.
No, yeah. Yeah, and so I think, on top of this, you then have Brexit. We had as you both said, massive increases in the prices of goods, the cost of shipping kind of increased quite tremendously. I don't know if there's anything you.
Yeah, I think it's also the fact that Brexit brought many unknowns. It was suddenly, we're starting, and so there were loads of paperwork and goods stuck by two things, by Brexit, but also by COVID, right? So there was double sort of trades, goods that were stuck somewhere because one reason or the other. So that delay also the flow of products, the routes through which products have to come into the UK as well. Some traders were telling us actually it's easier to sort of bring goods directly from the countries that the origin country, whether it's Ecuador or Colombia and so on, rather than through the European sort of networks that they used to have, because that became much more difficult. So in terms of Brexit, there was the element of the goods and the way the goods came here, the additional taxes they had to pay, the additional paperwork they had to do, which was completely unknown. We did some sort of workshops around that, but it was really telling how much or how little we didn't know, right? How much we didn't know. That's the way, right? And I think not just, well, for us was completely new, but also for the traders themselves who are involved in trading, on their daily sort of basis and import and export what's good. The other thing that was really interesting that I think came out of that part of the research, which is the Brexit ones, was the customer base shifting, because there were loads of people from former European, sort of European countries that decided to go. And so some of the traders were telling me, well, actually, I used to have a lot of the migrant population that used to live here who suddenly have families from Europe coming over, and they will come and get some goods from me. I'm not mentioning goods and so on because I don't want to say who the traders we spoke with are. But basically, they saw that there was a decline on that sort of purchasing of goods because the population has shifted as well. The local population has shifted. So Brexit brought about that when then we were hit by the pandemic, and I don't know.
And I mean, I think what's important to highlight is just the way that each of these crises kind of built on each other. So with COVID, for example, okay. Okay. We have another trader who has joined. Okay, perfect.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, sorry, Stephen, 1 second. Yeah, so just that so COVID hit before the traders left the shopping center. And so what you kind of see is that the impact of COVID for the traders in the shopping center and the impact for COVID for the traders in the relocation spaces was really different. And I think that that's something that's kind of important to look at. And granted, the third lockdown was a lot longer and it was quite prolonged, but yeah, so that's
can I add?
Yeah,
the traders were asked to go in September 2020, right? After the first sort of opening up, right, a little bit. So not only have they lost the trade because having to be closed for the first 3 or so months in March, reopening, closing again, having to move basically, and then relocated to an area that no one knew where it was. So the two things, that's it. That's it.
3 months after we moved to the new site, we were asked to close again. So that didn't give people time
so
to
it was constant. So basically the relocation and COVID, in the end, Brexit became like completely irrelevant at the time in certain respects, right? Or not completely irrelevant, but it was like, I think if anything, it was after we came out of the pandemic that Brexit has hit slightly as well harder. But it was all of these things are happening at the same time. And I think this is one of the things that I wanted to highlight, how they were relocating in the middle of a pandemic. There was no mercy there. There was no leeway there. We were closing the shopping center and,
And the policy responses didn't deal with them as happening simultaneously. So you had COVID grants, and you had the kind of S106 planning obligations, but there was nothing that was really looking at the fact that these were being experienced at the same time, and that the impact of one didn't mean that, like, relocation couldn't be addressed with the COVID grant in terms of the obstacles that it. Likewise, the planning obligations were established prior to the pandemic, so there was nothing in them, any leeway to support traders going with these additional challenges. And so what you get is a lot of, that's something that's also fun, especially with the cost of living, is that the debt that was accrued because of relocation, that was accrued because of COVID and because of the loss of business, and the debt that's been accrued because of increasing prices, and has been worsened by the fact that consumers that traders are relying on don't have money to be spending on things. Their prices are going up, and so they're getting squeezed because all of a sudden they're not able to increase the prices. Anything their further prices that they want. The customers, as you said, you're selling. Yes. Sorry. What we know is that the cost of living crisis is going to turn into a debt crisis. Like that is what people are predicting. And you have traders who have already accrued to now 2.5 years of debt, who aren't making enough to pay rent on their spaces, and who are now having to face debt because the cost of gas is increasing, the cost of food is increasing, and all of these things are kind of building on each other. But I do want to.
Can I just add one?
Yes,
thing that,
sorry, and then Stephen.
Yeah, one thing that Sarah sort of pointed out, and I think this is something that's also part of the results of this sort of and the recommendations that we're doing, was that the management of each crisis was dealt with separately, and there was no sense of an overall picture and a comprehensive picture in which policies were addressing all of them simultaneously. And so we think that also impacted severely in how we, the traders, responded to all of these crises in that respect. So that's some outcome from the research that I wanted to highlight. Yeah, sorry.
No, Stephen.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to be talking on behalf of my mum, which is the owner of El Wambra in Castle Square. So we have been experiencing a lot of different difficulties, being personal and also with the unit itself. So at the very first, when it started, I think it was September, we was given the keys of the unit, and it had a lot of faults, in which obviously I made the management and made everyone aware of the issues, and they never got dealt with from the beginning. So down the line, I knew that if the issues weren't dealt with, we was going to experience it in a hefty way, and which it happened. I think we spoke again to them about a particular issue, which is the front door and the fridge, and I think it was almost a year when they tried to fix. Well, they didn't really fix the fridge, but they helped us gain a new one. Up until today, we've still haven't heard back from the front door. It's really heavy compared to the other ones that are in Castle Square, and I've made a complaint about this ever since we've got the keys, but nothing has been done with. And now, obviously, with a major issue, which is the electricity, we've been in several communications with them about the electricity almost about 2 years now, and still nothing has been done. And technically we're just hoping for them to actually have a bit of consideration and do something about it, because it's not great. We are paying all the rents, we're paying all the service charge, and even paying service charge, Some people have noted that the lifts are not working, the toilets a bit, are filthy. So, one asks, why are we paying something if we're not receiving what they're saying, we're going to receive? And it's been like that, to be honest. And to be honest, that from the beginning, a lot of people said, yes, do it, go for it. It's going to be good. It's going to be, there's going to be a lot of people, good advertisement. Well, that was a complete lie, because when we got there, the people have left. They don't know where Castle Square is. I've, in several meetings we've had with management, I said, I gave a lot of suggestions about marketing, about, what we could do, and they've just simply ignored it. And that's why a lot of traders, including ourselves, we've lost people, and the trading is not as it was before in the main Elephant and Castle. And I believe that, by not doing enough, is why me personally, we're suffering, and I can see a lot of other units around Castle Square suffering as well. So it's a bit sad to see that no one is actually doing anything. And as I've heard in the meeting now, is a lot, they're still required to pay rent, and they're still required to pay service charge, but they're not giving us the support that we need as a business, and as obviously individuals as well. So it's a bit complicated, but I just wish that, someone could actually do the difference, and help us out, and also help other people out.
Thank you so much, Stephen. So I'm just going to quickly go through the policy recommendations that we put together as a result of the report, and then I think we can open it up for questions. So the first is that, as Patria mentioned, the policies have to be both comprehensive and relational in their understanding of what's going on in areas. So not just respond to these crises individually, but respond to them as interrelated, and understand that policy has to be able to address kind of the intersections of all these crises. And also specifically address the way in which these crises are amplifying existing inequalities, because that's not being done. Policies also have to be locally grounded. So we've run into some issues where we've asked, and the traders have asked for things that are specific to their relocation sites, or kind of the challenges that they're facing. And I think especially in the case of Elephant Arcade, where the landlord is the council, we have gotten responses that are basically like, we can't do this here because we're not doing it in other places. But what that completely ignores is the fact that the context of Elephant and Castle is different than the context of elsewhere in Southwark, and of elsewhere in anywhere else in London. And that policy and kind of responses have to be
Superior landlord, not landlord.
they're the superior
Yeah,
landlord.
there's a difference.
Yes, and there's a management company, but at the end of the day, they're the ones that are with you didn't have a rent-free period, correct? But that was
It was
something.
like a filter. So superior landlord,
Yes.
management agent is the landlord, and then us the tenant. So that way, basically, there's some kind of a layer of protection, because if they'd given us directly the lease, that would have been, they are responsible directly for us. So they hired the management agent to manage us and give them the lease, and then they give us the lease for a reason. And the reason for that is so they're not directly responsible for us.
And I think the other thing is, if a local authority is genuinely invested in supporting hyperlocal economies and supporting the high streets in specific areas, that the policies that have to be governing, or that the policies that have to be put into place have to be responsive to the needs of those particular areas. There's no two high streets that are the same, and there's no two commercial areas and commercial communities that are the same. Policies have to be preventative. So we've spoken about 4 crises that are ongoing in many ways, but this doesn't even touch the surface of the crises that are to come. We know that there's a debt crisis looming. we know that climate change is going to bring crisis at every level, at global, national, local, hyperlocal. And there's no policies that are really preparing and building business resilience for these coming crises. Policies have to be empowering and inclusive. So if they are about local business, they have to be made in partnership with local business. I think that that's something that's been made clear, is that the businesses in Elephant and Castle know their needs. They ran successful businesses for years. They understand what's missing. And every time that they've raised this, they've basically been told that there are obstacles that prevent those things from being implemented. So for signposting and wayfinding is the easiest example. There are very specific types of signage that they've requested, and they've been told time and time again that it's not possible for them to get these, even though they know that that would begin to address a lot of the issues that they're having, and that have been that have emerged as a result of all of the crises. More financial support in the form of grants specifically is necessary for any economic recovery in the area. I think it's important to note that the traders who did receive grants felt that they were really, really helpful. A lot of them went towards paying rent rather than any sort of business development, and kind of went towards paying off or preventing themselves from getting further into arrears. But financial support is necessary. And then I think the kind of one of the final things is that there's a connection between debt and the experiencing of these crises and health. And that's health, both kind of physical health, mental health, cultural health in terms of kind of the general area, economic health of the area, the kind of social health of the area as well. There's been a lot of antisocial behavior that's been impacting the traders in particular. That's kind of low level, but has emerged kind of recently. And the kind of just general, I think, like for Elephant and Castle to thrive, you need to be supporting not only the residential community, but also the commercial community. And that's not really been happening. And I don't know if you have anything you would like to add, but I think we can open it up to questions. Yeah. So
are there any questions in the room at the moment? Because we'll go back and forth between Zoom and the room. But if there's anyone who has any questions, Sarah, should I take this over?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so sorry to hear your stories. It's really sad to hear. I just wondered whether you know how the businesses that haven't been relocated have fared, like the ones down, is it Elephant Road? Down, I think it's Elephant Road down the back where the arches are. I wonder whether you've got any understanding of how they've managed.
So the arches is an interesting situation. There are, in the original plans, and Jerry, please feel free. Jerry from 35% campaign is here, and I may pull him in to support on this, but there are 2 arches that were originally within the red line, and that's 6 and 7. And so one of those is Distrandina, and the other one is Elephant Mall, which is actually a clustering of, I think, 13 businesses. The council just kind of re-upped their CPO power for those arches and have now included 4 and 5, which are Corsica, 6 and 7, and then 2 on the other side where there used to be kind of an auto garage. And the idea is that arches 6 and 7 will actually be knocked through as kind of an entryway into the site. And they're planning on doing the idea is that they'll do some swaps. So technically speaking, a lot of those businesses actually will be impacted. They just haven't been impacted yet. I think that being said, there are some businesses there that adapted really quite well to a lot of the challenges. So Distrandina, for example, used to be a nightclub, has become a market, and they're doing pretty well, and they want to stay as a market. So they're not actually looking to switch back after COVID to becoming a nightclub again. They're going to stay as a market cafe. I think the businesses that, like, I think there's still a lot of uncertainty in terms of what's going to happen, and that's kind of what's characterizing them right now, like their experience right now. I think the other thing is that it's and at least one of the traders who we interviewed for the report was not relocated to a relocation site. So there are traders, about half the traders who are eligible for relocation were not actually relocated. And so some have gone to markets, some have closed businesses entirely, like shut down their businesses, some have transitioned to other things. So the experience of traders is quite different. And I will say at least one trader who relocated to East Street Market said that not only was relocation difficult, but COVID was really, really hard because people just stopped really going to the markets. And so, and also Brexit made things very difficult because the increase in prices, and he couldn't basically transition online through all of this because the only way to compete with his goods online is to sell at wholesale, at pure wholesale prices, and that's not something that he can do. So, or they can do. So the challenges for a lot of the traders, whether they were relocated or not, is the same, and the uncertainty exists for the ones in the arches as well. Yeah.
Sorry, I will be talking a lot because I've ribbed it, and it's kind of like a very passionate subject for me. Even if I move to Egypt, I will still communicate with you guys over Zoom because I'm passionate about the whole issue. I just don't like unfairness. So in the very first time, to answer your question about relocation and about traders, the very first meeting we had with the Lancy spokesperson, we had a meeting with them in the management office, and Patria was there, and I didn't know Patria then. We got introduced to each other afterwards. It stuck to my mind. He said, guys, we encourage you to look for another landlord because we're applying to rebuild the shopping center, or knock it down and start again. So we advise you to find another landlord because your face will no longer fit. And that statement have made me furious. And I stood up to him and I said, what do you mean our face no longer fit? What do you mean by that statement? And this is how the fight and the campaign started. I didn't understand it. So if you analyze the whole scenario now and the application and the relocation, the reason they only put 13 or 14 or 15 traders in Castle Square, because Castle Square for them will act as a filter for 5 years. Whoever can survive Castle Square will have a right of first refusal. That means they don't really guarantee. So out of Castle Square, when the shopping center is ready, they probably take maybe 2 or 3 traders. And then these traders have to look to see if they can afford to move in there. There's a big pressure on Arch, Ben, is it Arch 7? Yeah, there's a lot of pressure going on him because I know him personally. And basically, for the past 2-3 years, come on, you need to sign with us. They're offering him different places, but he has to think about the other traders that are in his arcade. And it's a vibrant place. It's a bakery at the end. And Latin people go in there in the morning, early hours, before they start work. Latin culture is like that. They start 5 o'clock in the morning. So they go there on cafecito and like little breakfast, and they just go to work. And they rely on that. You're killing that. And they're really struggling. Lunchtime is buzzing. And then they have all these places where they do logistics and sending parcels back home and stuff. So all of that is going to be gone. And they're putting a lot of pressure on them.
We've got Stephen online who's raised a hand, so I'm just going to unmute.
Yes, just to add what the gentleman was saying about the relocation. It was really difficult, not only for the people that wasn't chosen, but for the actual people that I think was chosen. We wasn't chosen per se at the beginning, but then something happened and we got granted a place in Castle Square. Now, a lot of people might say that the relocation for us was, a smooth ride, which in fact it wasn't like that. Because we've had granted a place in Castle Square. I think the process for us was very, very difficult in a sense, sorry, that the when it came to signing the lease and looking at the lease and everything like that, I think it was rushed. And now that I've looked at the lease myself, the lease is really bad. And when I say really bad, it's really bad for us as the owners of the business. And yeah, the relocation, I think the process in which it started and the meetings that we had at the beginning made it sound as if everyone was actually going to get a place and if everyone was actually going to get treated fairly, where in fact it came down the line that we was treated unfairly and the process for the relocation was terrible. I know that for the people that didn't get a place, it was a bit worse than for the people that did, but we being the people that managed to get a place in Castle Square was actually really, really bad. The whole process, I think if it was a bit managed well, I think we would hopefully gone treated well. But as it stands, I think everything was just a roller coaster, to be honest.
Sophie, we have a few questions in the chat. Should I read them up? Okay, so the first one is from Maria Camila in Spanish. I'll translate. She's asking, después del cambio, si todos los comerciantes reencontraron un espacio y si hay estadísticas demostrando un cambio positivo o negativo. Basically asking if every trader found a place and if there's been an impact, an assessment of the changes. I guess partially was answered by Sarah by saying that definitely not everyone got a place. We continued campaigning just after 24 September 2020 for an alternative market. That small campaign lasted for long months. We faced obstacles from TfL, Southern Council, and the developers. To make it short, they did not agree to put a market outside Nando's on the North Roundabout. And some of those traders luckily have found a place in East Street markets, and some others have gone online, and some others have sadly have not found a place. There's another question by Pau Salcedo. She's asking how are relationships with the council at the moment, and do they acknowledge these issues? I don't know if Patria or Sarah wants to take that question, or maybe Natalia. Happy to if
not. At the moment, the relationship with the council has stalled a bit, though they do look at us when there's a need to communicate things to the traders. But one of the first grants for the report, when probably they still didn't know where we were, who really were people who were our beneficiaries, and in terms of charity language, and who we work with, they gave us the first grant to do that report. And and which the charity was set up. And then after that, they gave us for some workshops as well. And throughout COVID, they gave us very minimal, sort of less than £3,000 or something like that, sort of emergency fund as well. But yeah, the relationship with the council has always been, well, not always, it's changed the minute that we put the main opposition. But I think, you know, and I've written about this elsewhere, that the council is in a weird position in the middle, whereby, you know, on one side it has all the deficit and the need for enamoring the sort of developers, and on the other side a duty to its citizens and to the people in the borough. So it's torn between the two, and we know what our place is, right? We know who we work with and for in that respect, and that's I think I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Yeah, just that, Jerry, would you're welcome to come and sit. Yes, this is this is Jerry Flynn from 35% Campaign.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I'm very pleased to be here. We've campaigned alongside Latin Elephant and other groups to, first of all, try and save the Haygate estate, which we evidently failed to do, and then to try and retain as many traders at the Elephant and Castle as possible. For all that time, our main protagonist, I have to say, has been Southwark Council. Now, Southwark Council's position in this is that it is the local authority, and as Sarah says, it has responsibility to the people who live and work in the borough. And the first question you have to ask yourself is, how has it discharged this responsibility with regards to the traders in the shopping centre? And I think the only answer to that is very, very badly. I think if I had to think of one word to describe Southwark Council's attitude towards the traders, it is one of indifference. Indifference. It is not indifferent to what Delancey needs. It gives that very readily. It is not indifferent to what Lend-Lease needs. It gives that very readily as well, and it continues to do so. It gives it land when it needs it. They give them planning permissions when they need them. Their senior officers work in very close collaboration with the senior people in Lend-Lease and Delancey. We do not get that same kind of collaboration with the traders or with those who wish to represent or advocate on behalf of the traders. Having said that, we have no alternative, and Latin Elephant have no alternative, but to try to work with the council. The council ultimately is run by the elected members, the local councillors, for which there are 3 for the area in which the shopping centre is contained, the local ward. Their record is equally mixed when it comes to how they help traders, how they help local residents in the context of regeneration. I believe they would argue differently, that their priority is the regeneration and what they see as the benefits it will bring to the area. And they prioritize that over the needs of the people who are already here. And I was struck by, in the account of the experiences of the traders to date, how many simple things which could have been done and should have been done simply haven't been done. How can you explain why signs which the traders, who know, say are needed for their businesses to thrive, how can you explain that the signs haven't been provided? How can you explain that the repairs to such basic things as toilets and lifts haven't been done? How can you explain this? And as I say, I think part of the explanation, a good part of the explanation is ultimately, I'm afraid, Southwark Council will remain indifferent to what is happening to the traders that have left them from the Elephant and Castle and those that remain here. And I think from what I am hearing, the policies that are being proposed today are policies that are worth promoting now, but the obstacle is going to be getting Southwark Council to put force behind them in the relationship that they have with Delancey and Lend-Lease. And yeah, that is something I'm sure we're all going to do our best to remedy.
Yes, also Sophie, do you want to?
It's just super quick thing. It's probably actually easier if I sit by the laptop, but that we did invite Southwark councillors to be here, and it is, and on many, many occasions, invite them into the room with traders so you can have that conversation whereby the information that they need to act on, you know, can be facilitated, but it can be like pulling teeth sometimes. And it's kind of like even trying to get into the room, and it's what Emma had mentioned earlier as well about that distancing, like so having the superior landlord and the third party management in between, like you'll sometimes have to go to the third party management, or like something very simple, like can we all be in a room together so we can just like go over what the issues are, you can hear directly, like we can look for solutions. But even that is difficult. You'll speak to the third party management and they'll be like, okay, no, like we'll go to Southwark. Or you'll write to the developer and the email you'll receive and reply is from the third party management agent. Like it just like makes the whole process so much more complicated than it needs to be.
I think, and then I'll give it to you, Emma, so you can speak. But I think in terms of one of the biggest challenges that we've faced with the council is the strength with which they're enforcing planning obligations. So there's some kind of the S106 isn't particularly strict in some parts where there's kind of the ability for Southwark Council to push a little bit more forcefully on the developers. And what we've found is even in light of kind of the rising cost of in some cases with relocation, the rising cost of materials to fit out a place, or the challenges that businesses are facing because of COVID or all of these other things, there's really no effort by the council to, in the places where they can, request more from the developers to actually do so. So that's been one of the challenges that we've.
Yeah, the S106 is an agreement between the council and the developers, Lend-Lease and Delancey, as to what the developers will do for the traders, as in provide affordable space that they can move into. And one of the obstacles that Sarah is referring to is that that space was provided, and traders were assured, we will give you space that is affordable to you. It's called affordable retail. And those traders, frankly, were kept quiet during the whole process by that assurance. They thought they were going to be taken care of. Mm-hmm. Come the day that they had to move into those spaces, they found out that those spaces were exactly that, a space without electricity, a space without toilets, a space without what you would call mechanicals, and they were presented with a bill to put all those things into that space, to put the electrics, to put the toilet, put the mechanicals in. And of course, surprise, surprise, the bill, which was huge, is huge, couldn't be met, so they can't move. This is an ongoing problem. I have to say, Latin Elephant are doing a great job, everything they can, to try and get a resolution for it. And there has been a little bit of leeway. I should mention there are one or two councillors who are a little bit more sympathetic than some others. But it is a struggle. And I have to say, it was a shock to those traders when they found out what the real situation was, and a real breach of faith. Mm-hmm. And it's continuing. Efforts to try and get traders, even now relocated, are continuing, and Latin Elephant is involved in them. And the question is now arising, Castle Square was only supposed to be a temporary space, supposed to be a temporary space for 5 years. Well, I don't know how many years we're into it now, but its future will begin to come into question. And I think that might give us an opportunity of getting something a little bit better for those traders, including those at Peronate House who remain, as might what is going to happen to the arches. That is subject to a separate legal process. very long-winded, compulsory purchase order, but it is going to give the opportunity of raising these issues generally. Also, there is another huge development just down the road called the Borough Triangle, which is looking to displace the Mercato market. Quite a different kind of place, but nonetheless a place that is valued, where people are working now. And I can see that we're going to get the same kind of situation where the traders who are being displaced are going to be told some things to reassure them, but when the time comes, they're not going to be able to move. They're not going to be able to do it. So I think that in itself gives us an opportunity to maybe remedy some of the problems that we've had at the shopping centre and make sure at least it doesn't happen again.
Excuse
Well, basically, I'll mention 2 points. Basically, one is relating to S106 agreement, which is the agreement the developer signed with the council. They said, we're going to put the minimum of £634,000. And that's the minimum we're going to put. We're going to put more for the traders, but that's the minimum we can guarantee. And then one of the reasons why they rushed all the traders to move after COVID lockdown, the first lockdown in that short period, is what they did was really, really, I can't describe it, but it's horrible. They just went down to all the traders and said, look, you have a very short time. We're going to move out by September. So sign here and we will give you the key for your unit ready. You don't have to do anything. We will even move your stuff for you, your goods.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, this is too good to be true. So I started to analyze it. And I looked at some of the paperwork, who signed here. And what they did, they basically hired a company that belongs to them to do the work. So it's almost like I charge you retail, but I'm paying wholesale. So the actual money that they pay of 634, and then they say we're going to add more from our pocket, the actual money they paid was maybe a third of that. But the bill was pumped up by the fact they used their own side company to do the work. And that's how they managed to basically move everybody around. And the kind of work they did was really low standard fitting and horrible compared to what the traders had. And they did give them the unit ready. After 2-3 months, they started to have problems and issues with their equipment and what they received because they were not properly done. So basically, I will be very quick. One of the reasons, going back to declustering, is to use the rule of divide and conquer. So Castle Square traders were one. I'm not allowed to speak for them. I moved to Elephant Arcade. I'm only allowed to speak on behalf of Elephant Arcade. So going to the question of Santiago's text, the actual question that came by speech is what communication we had with the council. The communication we had with the council was really frustrating. We wrote letters collectively when I was in Elephant Arcade to the councillors. Look, we're having a hard time here. This is after 6 months or after a year of moving. We're having a hard time. And on behalf of Elephant traders, we are having a hard time here. Elephant Arcade is not really working for us. What happened? They spend weeks before they decide to come to see us. They can see everything for themselves. Yes, we agree with you guys. See, you've been with us here for 2-3 hours. Have you seen a single person walk in? Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. And then the frustrating part, they wait for 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks, and what results? We start to send them email. What's the answer? What are you going to do for us? They reiterate exactly what we wrote in the very first letter. Elephant Arcade traders are having a hard time. I was there for blah, blah, there's nothing, but you have to understand it's COVID and pandemic and Brexit, so there's not a lot we can do for them. So we wrote another letter 6 months down the line. So we realized at the end that this is basically talking to a wall. That it's not responding back to you. And that basically emphasizes that what Jerry said, they basically have ears that don't listen to us, but they have the other ear that listen to the developer and what the developers want. But that can only emphasize one word: who face fits and will survive to continue to stay in the area. So if your face fit.
Can I add more? For the past how many weeks now, we had a meeting that place is not known. The arcade, Elephant Arcade, is not known to some people. What are you going to do for us? They promised, they put, we made suggestions. Like I said to them, you go to arcade in Brixton, we see a light, rainbow color. If anybody's passing through there and they see rainbow colors, they say, oh, what is going on there? They probably go in and say, the shops are inside, it's not out. It's in, and there's nothing showing outside. We've already complained this one to them so many times. Oh, we are coming here, we are going to do it, we are going to do this, we are going to, nothing is done. And how can we make any progress? When customers get fed up, when they look for us, they couldn't find us. They find there are a lot of people doing business. They go to another place. And we have been saying this, and the last time we had a meeting, I said to them that, look, you complained about this thing, this and this one, you haven't done nothing. And I said to them, if you don't do anything, I'm not coming to any meeting again. It's just waste of time. Because when we keep on asking for something, if you are not going to do it, tell us the reason why you are not going to do it. If you can't put anything outside, tell us, is the tenants, are they afraid of the tenants? That they couldn't put anything outside to show that shops are in here. We don't understand. So we are not going to be there sitting down, making nothing, and they want to take the rent. How can we do that?
I just want to open up to the room. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I believe Gabriel Perez has a question.
Good afternoon. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much to give me the opportunity to ask a question. England has a new prime minister. Then I ask, the policies of the new prime minister are positive or negative for the Elephant Castle programs? Santiago, what do you think about that?
I'm not sure I'm the right person to take the question, but probably maybe Jerry, you want to comment? I think probably it's in a different kind of sphere of influence, although it's a national issue. I mean, there was a question in the chat as well on how these. By the way, that was Vanessa that we only provided the link from Brixton, a very nice project, the Advocacy Academy, and this is obviously happening not just in Elephant Castle, not just in London, but sadly in a lot of UK and actually in many urban cities across the globe. Not sure how much Rishi Sunak is willing to give us a hand. Maybe in a line or two, Jerry, if you want to answer.
Okay, Santiago, thank you very much.
Yes, we have a new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. I think he is rather remote in every sense of the word from what's happening at the Elephant Castle, I must say. Personally, he seems like a man who's willing to help where he can. But I don't think we can count on too much help from Mr. Sunak. We do have a mayor, as well as Southwark Council. We have a mayor of London, Mayor Sadiq Khan, who also is willing, I think, or says he is willing, but could do more. There is more resource available, I believe. Patria might know something about this, from the Greater London Authority. The Greater London Authority has recognised the Elephant and Castle as being an important place for retail in the future, and has recognised the so-called nighttime economy, the economy that depends upon cafes and bars and so forth. And I think there is a possibility even now there of getting better support in that way.
Does anybody have any questions in the room? Natalia.
Thank you so much, and thank you to Esther, Emma, as well as Stephen for their time this evening. I have one question for all of you, please. How do you see yourselves in 5 years in terms of your independent businesses? And you've explained this evening all the effort, dedication, passion, commitment that you've had to running your business, and how you've campaigned for that retention, and how you've supported others in that process as well. My question is, so how do you see yourselves in 5 years? Do you see yourselves as part of the community as well, and as part of Latin Quarter? Thank you. Or the area, or the area of the Elephant and Castle? Thank you.
Esther, do you want to start? Sorry, Esther, do you want to start? Where do you see yourself in 5 years based on?
I was not even, well, I still have interest in trading, so I want to continue. Somebody was saying to me, oh, they put you in the wrong place, they should have put you. All these things started with the council's fault. The council started it because we have made our customers in that place, and when you want to move us out, they should back us with money, not throw us out as if they were happy to throw us out of the building. So in 5 years' time, I probably, if I'm still alive, I probably be trading there as well. You can.
Well, for majority of traders, basically, they've made the brave decision to not work full time and trade their skills and time for themselves. So for them to do that, they need a space, and they need customers. And those two things have been basically affected greatly by the relocation, the Brexit, and the pandemic. So for us to build ourselves again with Elephant and Castle, when I moved in 2010, was basically classed as a dangerous area, and nobody wanted to come here. And the shop I rented was closed for almost a year and a half before I took it, because I was literally opposite that shop in a small kiosk, and it was closed. Nobody wanted to take it. There was not a lot of people that wanted to trade in the area. They were classed, no, it's a rough area. And suddenly it became a stone's throw from central London and the Piccadilly of the south. So it depends on how you look at it. Of course, we would like to continue to trade in the area, but for us to trade successfully, we need to basically understand the demographic of the new area. We need to have a space to trade from, so we can basically feed into this community. I believe a lot of traders have the potential to feed and continue serving the community that live here, despite of the demographic. There are still people living around, despite of all the new buildings being sold and new people moving in. There's still an element of local people that still existed there and who still need our services. So we would like to continue, but as Jerry said, if Qatar Council listen to the traders, then we'll be able to continue to have a place to trade from, affordable as they promised us, which did not happen. So we can basically continue to rebuild our business and survive that horrible period that we've lived.
And then does Stephen want?
Yes, I would like to say something. Well, in 5 years' time, I must say that if we don't start getting the support that we need, let it be from the council, from the government itself, or from any authority, I believe that not only us will be impacted, but I think a lot of people would, go downhill, let's say. I believe that, talking on behalf of my mom, she's been in business for almost all her life. She started back home, then she came here, and we had a business in Oval, and one in Brixton as well. Then we moved to Elephant, and she's been in business all her life, to be honest. So not sure what she would say personally, but the way I see it is, I think and I believe that Elephant is a really good area now that there's started to be, a lot of police around, and the area is becoming more modern than it was before. It's a really good place, not only for us as restaurants, but also other trading. But yeah, like I said, if we don't get the support now from the government or whoever that has authority, I believe that 5 years is nothing is going to happen, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a question in the room. I can repeat it if you just. Actually, sorry. Let me just give-
Thank you. So yeah, the question is about demographic composition and the three crises which coincided recently. But if we talk about for a minute about Haygate, can you say that the demolition of Haygate and was also kind of crisis for you because the demographic composition of the area changed? And I've had an idea that it was the main clientele, your main clientele.
You want to take it?
Well, absolutely. That was the very beginning, well before Delancey, well before anybody, well before me. I had friends that had shops inside Elephant and Castle Shopping Centre. It was buzzing. So imagine like a big Haygate estate that housed, I don't know how many people they housed, Jerry? 3,000 people. So just behind the shopping center, 3,000 people. If we say 1,000 of them are the adults that will go out shopping and the rest not coming out, that's 1,000 people coming out to the shopping center. So I knew people that had shops before me. Basically, they were really running very successful business beyond their imagination. That is example of demographic understanding of local residents. However, when we going through the relocation and we had a session with the business advisor about demographic, what we were told, you need to be prepared for the demographic change after the shopping center closes. Who's moving in and who's moving out? That's exactly how it was described. So who's moving in are basically the consumer that looking for authentic products. So if you're selling something generic, they will walk past your shop and they won't buy anything from you. But if you sell something authentic, then they will basically walk into your shop, as in a handmade product or food that basically that create like a, like a Ethiopian restaurant theme. So, and I think, okay, but there's so many Latin shops, that's really authentic. You can't get more authentic than that. Come on, please. And when you walk into these shops, you got so many handmade products. So unfortunately, the Brexit and the pandemic came at the same time. So we couldn't really measure that demographic effect, really. And because, as I said earlier in my very first speech, that the consumer behavior have changed. So you lock people in for 3 months, you change the consumer behavior. So most people, before they do anything, they will just go on their phone and they will check, okay, I can get this, but let me check if I can get it online. How much cheaper will it be? So that hits with Brexit, because the big giants are able to bank on their supplies that before Brexit that they had in their warehouses and they stored in Amazon, for example, for they can afford to do that. But we were living in a short supply month by month. So when we ask for the supplier, we will ask the supplier to bring it to us month by month. And then the prices suddenly went up after Brexit and then followed by a pandemic. So we couldn't afford to get affordable supplies. So it's all interconnected, really. So, yeah.
And I think it's just worth saying that when we were interviewing traders with our yeah, so when we were interviewing traders, what became clear is that not only is regeneration and kind of displacement, an ongoing issue at the moment in a crisis that's still happening, but that it started long before the specific demolition of the shopping center. So it's a crisis that's been happening since the demolition of the Haygate and into the present, and which will continue into the future. So I think part of the issue is that policy responses looked at it as a specific instance in time, as this is what's happening in this moment in 2020. And there's kind of a 5-year period that's being taken into consideration. And that's kind of the timeline of the proposed timeline of the construction of the space of the new town center. But what traders have identified, and what I think the report identifies, is that it's not a time limited crisis, that it's still happening. It was happening before maybe it was spoken about and rhetorically understood as happening. And so I do, yeah, just get the yes, basically, is the answer to your question. I think unless there's another question, I'll check online, but no, there isn't. Just want to open up to the room one last time for any last questions before we close. No? Okay, sorry. Let me get this. Natalia, do you want to?
Yes, of course. No, Sarah, thank you so much to everyone for participating this evening and for coming to the launch of our report. Thank you particular to all the traders, please, Esther, Emma, Stephen as well for your time this evening as well. Thank you, Jerry, as well for your input and your thoughts. And thank you so much to everyone that has joined us this evening in person and online. Please, I think it's important to remember that we need to support independent businesses. And I understand that Santiago has put on the chat the social media accounts of the different businesses this evening, and on our website you can also find information about other independent businesses. So please, it's just an invitation for all of you to support them by supporting the community. That would be great. Also, we have the report is on our website, so please read it, please share it, and yes, share it with other people that are interested. So that would be great as well if you could help disseminate those recommendations as well. Santiago, have you got other words?
Just to add that, thank you to the people that put a lot of hours and time into the reports, and obviously Esther, Emma, Stephen, and Marlene that shared their stories that I think are very powerful, and we appreciate for putting the time, and both people online and in person. It was also quite the experiment for us, being in this hybrid model, even though we're used to kind of these situations, and I hope that the sound and the complementary images and everything was okay, and that both people at Draper and on Zoom were able to enjoy the content of the conversation. So on my behalf, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank everyone for coming, but I want to personally thank Natalia, Santiago, Sophie, Sarah, and Mabel, who are the authors of the report, who went round looking for the interviews, who have done work with us throughout all of this period, freezing cold sometimes where we didn't have an office and so on, and gathering all of this information and writing it. So to them, my big thank you and a great applause as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you all. Thank you.